how she get it. Made a couple racks, I never asked her how she get it. City girls love to have fun in the city. City girls love to have fun in the city. City girls love to have fun in the city. City girls love to have fun in the city.
Welcome to Connect with Christina. And look who I have here.
It's me.
Our favorite comedian, Scottsdale's very own, Eric Bernal.
That is me, Eric Bernal. Thank you for having me.
Finally.
Yeah, took a while.
I mean, you've been busy just popping off in all these shows.
Yeah, it comes with the work. Gotta go.
I can't help but tell the story of how we met.
It's a good story.
So how about you share that?
All right, I'll say.
It's my favorite story.
We were both drunk at a mansion Halloween party. And I only knew of you. I didn't know you. I didn't even know who Clout Guy was. Like the person, I thought it was just like a brand or something. But then it was you. And then you were taking pictures and you kind of just saw me and you're like, hey, come here. And I was like, oh, what's up? And you're like, hey, what do you do? And I was like, I do comedy. I just started. I was very in the
You just
beginning.
moved from New York.
Yeah, I was very in the beginning. And then you were like, all right, cool. Next show you have, we'll pack it out. And I was like, well, okay. All right. But there was a connection. I was like, who is this person? Like, she's so nice. She's so cool. And we ended up just having drinks, hanging out. Obviously, met Kevin. And I had met Kevin previously to that. I just didn't know that was your man. And it was cool. It was cool. And we stayed connected. And it was one of those things where you're like, you know how they say, like, time is relative? Like, you know, you can meet somebody for a day and felt the connection way further than maybe even your grade school, you know, friendships where they may have dwindled and gone away. So that was the same thing. Like, it was immediate. I remember people would ask us, I think at that Tempe, we did a show at Tempe Improv and I just featured. I wasn't like the headliner or anything. It was just a feature. And you were like, all right, this is my boy. And we had known each other for maybe 30 days.
Right. Maybe less.
Yeah, possibly less. But it was cool. It was like one of those things where it was like an instant connect. Like, you know, when like the puzzle piece just fits and it made sense. So
did we pack it out?
We did pack it out. We packed it out. I mean, we packed it out on a Thursday, close to like 400 people.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was big. I mean, a lot of people, there's people who are famous that can't pack out Tempe Improv on a Thursday. So that was huge. And that really like led, that performance actually is what kind of broke me into like the Scottsdale scene of them knowing me for comedy rather than just me going there getting drunk. But it was just like, you know, it's what it was. But yeah, that was, and then it's been like snowballing, right? The whole time just getting bigger, 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 bigger. And you've played like a major part in me getting in front of the right people, because there's so many. I'm a firm believer that there's so many talented people that may not have the ability of getting in front of the right people, and then there's a lot of people who are talented that just don't have work ethic.
Right, that's true.
And that's why you'll never hear their name.
Right, that's true.
So I know, because I do see people. I see people who perform who are great, but right after they do their little open mic, they go home. They don't talk to anyone. They don't do anything. But you talk and we talk. So.
Yeah. Well, and you know, you through, first of all, I can't say this enough. Like, I am so proud of you. And I try to tell you that every day.
Thank you.
Like today, I tried to be the first person to text you. Mm-hmm. But sometimes I wake up late. So, but the point is, I've seen you. Like through 2020, you were working. Yeah.
And at a time that maybe a lot of people like gave up on that. I was trying to find different ways to do anything. Anytime like Arizona opened up for even 2 weeks, I said, let's do a show. Like if they're going to give us the okay, and if everyone that wants to go is also okay with it, like, let's go, let's do it. I did the car show, when I performed at, what is it, a drive-in?
Yes.
Yeah.
I missed that one, but that was good.
We did but you promoted it. Mm-hmm. And we did something different, right? Where I asked the owner that was running, I say, let me get the first 10 spaces. And that way I'll bring all my friends with luxury cars to come and make it a car show. Let's do something different. Like, it's always trying to enhance it.
Oh, Bryce, Page, shout out.
They brought out, you know.
What did he bring this time to that one? Rolls Royce?
We brought the Rolls Royce, and then George brought the McLaren, and I hope nice Beamers, Mercedes.
And it was something different. So I think people, because even the people that I asked to come, they're like, thank you for telling us about it. We had
Well, think
fun.
about it. So many people were like kept indoors. And then throughout the whole thing, Scottsdale was opening up a little bit. You had to sit. I mean, we had to go through the whole thing.
We went through a lot last year.
I mean, they shut down certain clubs because they weren't. So, and they had people with clipboards going through the club, making sure people were
plus
seated.
the riot too.
There was the riot. There was really everything.
Nonstop.
And I remember just asking. I mean, a lot of people asked me, like, hey, how do you get, like, I did the show at El Jefe, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember they were like, how'd you do that? I was like, I've been asking that guy before the pandemic if I could do it. And people just think, why would you do comedy in a nightclub? I'm like, why not? And I pitched the idea.
Shout out Austin.
I pitched the idea because businesses weren't doing good. Even the nightlife. These waitresses and waiters and bartenders, yeah, they were open, but for only the people that could be seated. So I had an idea, there's always a loophole. There's always a way around, right? In law, there's always some type of loophole, hopefully get us out or into something, right? So I was watching Goodfellas. Mm-hmm. But then I was watching, there's a part where pretty much like the entertainment was you sat down, you enjoyed a meal or a drink, and you watched the show. That was their nightclub. That was the nightlife.
That's true, like murder mysteries.
Yeah, they would just sit down and just, or there was a singer, or there was a magician, or there was a comedian go up there and do their one-liners. So I pitched it to him like that. I was like, people got to sit down anyways.
Right.
Why don't we do a show? Mm-hmm. They can't dance. So that's how we did that. So my whole thing was always trying to find a way around the situation. So 2020 probably slowed down a lot of people. I think that's when I gained speed more than any other time.
And the people, we don't, because we're all busy and we live our own lives. And like how you said, a lot of those people were not able to really have a lot of hours. Well, it's all connected, right? So remember, I was with KLG at the time and we did eviction work.
Yeah.
So when you're saying these, people couldn't work, well, they couldn't work and obviously they couldn't pay rent.
Yeah,
so
of course.
It was a lot more impactful than even you realize.
Of course. That's why there were shows where I would comp certain people that were going through something, because it's like, you're going to have a drink probably at home anyways. Why don't you have a drink? I'll comp you your ticket. Because there is something special about putting your phone away and laughing.
Listen
Disconnected.
to that. Say that again. One more time for the people in the back.
There's something nice about putting your phone away and just laughing, enjoying time in real time. I think I see that every time, when I would go on vacation, and then let's say with my family, and let's say we all had our phones or whatever, I would always see let's say the Disney World parade, right? They parade. Everyone's
Mm-hmm.
Every kid is just there. And every older person is just there. They don't have time to play. Even, the grandmas and grandpa probably do have phones. But I'm talking about the older ones. They're just and I here watching them.
Right.
So I'm experiencing life, loving life. That's what I think are good things about shows in general. A disconnect. Because I think about movies. During the Great Depression, that's where movies skyrocketed. People needed an escape.
Eric Bernal is also a historian, if you didn't know.
I love history. And I love it because you got to know that. And that's where I got these ideas for comedy, for these shows, is how am I going to do it? Well, let me look back on what happened when the world was sucking for a little bit, when there was a crisis, there was a financial crisis, people were throwing themselves off the building. And this is real stuff. People were suffering bad. They leaned on entertainment. They leaned on getting away from their reality for a bit to gain some type of sustain their humanity, their way of just being able to cope with what's going on. So that's all I want to do out there. And a lot of the stuff I say is true and maybe exaggerated, but
it's funny when it's true.
It's always funny when it's true. Yeah. That's the funniest part, is when you go through it. I talk about so many things, I say how my mom used to call me 88. You know what I mean? 80, and then people are like, what? And because she's
what?
She meant to say idiot. You know what I mean? It was her broken English, but it was just funny to me. You make these but the thing is, at the same time, she was making her best way of like trying to learn the language in a new country. And anytime I remember when I first moved here and I didn't like it first couple of months, I partied my ass off.
And where did you move from again? From
New York, from Sleepy Hollow, New York. And I'd partied my butt off. And I think after 3 months, I said, Mom, I want to come back home. I'm sad, blah, blah. She said, stay. This is an experience. You don't get this again. You'll have kids and it won't be hard for you to move. And she said, and I was like, yeah, but
Mom
I'm sad.
told you right.
And she goes, well, think about when I moved here from Ecuador. You think I was sad? You don't think I was going through it? You think people wouldn't rent to me because I was a woman?
Wow.
There was a lot of things that she went through. I think that's why today, in a world where everything is very like, look how sad I am, and it's a very victim type of thing, where it's like, it's very good to realize how good you have it.
Right.
Yeah. And that's why comedy is so good. It's tragedy plus time.
Right. And it's true. And that's why like I have no problem sharing all your shows, other than obviously from the beginning, I wanted to see you succeed, and you are already, and you're going to keep going. But you're also doing it for the health of everyone else, mental health.
It's good intent.
Yeah. Yeah. And then too, you help other people out. I mean, in your shows, what is it that you always say? Follow every comedian, please.
Yeah. Follow every comedian. I mean, there's something about being a good person that obviously it becomes like, okay, guy, like this is like so cliche, but it's so true. Like I'm a firm believer of putting good energy out there to get the good, because I remember when all I did have was bad energy. For some reason, I was just going through bad things too, right? And I have to understand that there may be a correlation of having a good, positive mind. Like I remember my dad, he paints, right? Paints, commercial buildings, whatever.
Well, this is your dad that has a crush on me?
Yeah, my dad has a crush on you. Okay. Shout out my dad. He's like, who's that woman? No, but I remember I was painting a wall. And my dad wasn't raised with me. We later became friends in like my adult life. But I remember he said, hey, you want to make some quick money? Let's go paint. And I remember I hated it. And I was doing it. And because I hated it so much, I just did it with like, with bad energy. And he said, you know what, Eric? You could do it with a good mind or with a bad mind. It's going to take the same energy. So might as well do it the way that's going to come out nice. True. So those type of things, those learnings, and then like my mom, I remember I've said this in other podcasts, but my mom brought up a very good point. She used to say, because I used to tell her, man, I hate where we live. There's like this time where you realize like where you sit financially with the rest of the country. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh no, I'm poor. And I remember I realized that like in my teenage years, and I was upset at her over it. And now looking back at it, obviously it wasn't obviously her fault. Five kids single, right? Couldn't be easy. But she never made it like about her. She said, which is like the most profound thing she ever told me. She said, there are people, Eric, who have it worse than you that will make it further than you. So what is exactly what's your...
What are you complaining about?
What are you complaining about? What's your issue? Could you imagine somebody has it worse and they're going to do better than you?
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned before that you were in Section 8 housing. Yeah. And I love that story because as a property manager, I had the opportunity to service, families that were... under that program. And it's a great program. And you're in New York. So what was that like for you? Section
8 housing. I mean, there are some good places. Like I've done Big Brother, Big Sister Arizona here, where the kid has Section 8 housing. It was like a brand new development place. Where I was in New York, it wasn't. It was nasty, to be honest with you.
High rise, obviously.
Yeah, I was on the 10th floor. It was a 10th floor building. Everything, the elevator would break. My mom had a bad foot. Sometimes we had to go 10 flights up, right? And I remember.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's wild. It's like a wild. Imagine a woman with her kids just like going up the stairs, and it's not safe going up the stairs. It's just not safe. So just going up there, and then just like I saw a girl get like, I'm pretty sure raped when I was 9 years old in the staircase. And I just looked left, You know what I mean? It was those type of circumstances. Was it all the time? No. But for it to be it could happen. Now it's different. Now it has cameras. Now obviously things are advanced. But the experiences were good. But people don't get they're like, oh, you just pay cheap rent, blah, blah. I remember the day I turned 18, they were like, how much does Eric make at his part-time job? And I was like, what? I'm a kid. They're like, well, we're going to raise your mom's rent.
Oh my gosh.
If you have a job. I was like, but I'm also going to college. Like, can you prove that? And I was like, yeah. And because I could prove I'm going to college, then they didn't raise her rent.
Right. Yeah, they do have to follow a program. I get that.
But even my sisters at 16 years old, 15, they were doing wait staff, and their waitresses at a banquet hall. And they would be like, all right, let me get, and then they would have to raise. So basically, their checks meant nothing. They had to kind of give it to my mom. Here you go. So there's goods and bads. I remember we had a family member stay for a week or two while they were moving somewhere else. And they're like, oh, we're going to raise the rent. They would just watch things. So that was my experience with it. I hear now it's a whole lot better there now. My mom still lives there. She loves it.
Same place?
Same place. And I think that is because she's been there for over 30 years. It's the only normal she knows. I said, even if I get big and famous, would I get you a house? She's like, I don't know. My friends are here.
I get that.
It's weird. It's crazy. But she's like, yeah.
And I think just a little bit of I know from your family, it's she created a home.
Yeah.
So it's just four walls.
Everyone knows her. So the thing is if you're an outsider walking in, you may not feel so welcome. But for her, hey, Nelly, what's up?
Right.
How are you, senora? Oh, everything's good. Okay. She's seen everyone there grow up. She's seen people grow up and, go to school. And, now they come back. Now they're adults and they know who she is.
So we're going to have to kidnap your mom and move her to Scottsdale.
I would love to. She likes it here. She likes the heat.
I'm going to say this again because we're going to go back to the show years later, but you're going to make it and you're going to make it big, right?
Oh, yeah. I'll clip it.
Recently, yeah. Recently, and while he makes it big, he helps other people make it big too.
It's the only way.
But the timeline, it's crazy. Walk me through how fast. Because, it was like you said, it went fast. From the time we met, did the first show, and then you have not stopped.
So I've always never did stand-up, but I always did performance art. I did spoken word poetry. I competed at a high level in New York. And I've always liked that. I did theater. So getting on stage was something I always had a familiarity with. Stand-up started August 11th, 2019.
Okay.
So we're 2 years and change into it.
Yeah.
That's it.
And since then, what have you've had to go back to New York?
Sold out a show. Yeah. I was headlining in New York at a Broadway comedy club. Seats about 180 people. 160 they said, and they had to add more chairs. So we did 186. How
was that? Because it's New York. You went home.
It was nice. I had a lot of my friends and family there. I guess for me, I don't take it as, I'm just doing comedy, whatever. It's my dream, man. And then sometimes I'm like, oh, I should really look back and just see how lucky I am. But when I went back home, a lot of my friends were like, yeah, this makes sense for you, man. And then a lot of my friends were like, unfortunately, some of them are just kind of still where they were when I left. And I think they look at me as man, if I can't do it, I'm going to push everything so you can do it. Sometimes people have talents and they're just so scared to even try. And that's the issue. You can't, I hear so many people go, hey, I want to do comedy. Great. Here's the open mic. There's a list of open mic. Go. I'll get to it. So it's with those things, I don't think, and this is obviously you're going to have a different perspective. I don't think I'm the funniest, right? Let's say my goal is not to be the funniest. My goal is to be the hardest worker in the room. That's why if any comedian, even in Phoenix, were to be Eric, that happened too fast for him, blah, blah, blah. But you don't know what I'm doing. Right. The comedy you maybe, the work you put in a month, maybe I've done in the last 3 days. Right. So there's no that. My work ethic, I'm more proud of that than my comedy. Mm-hmm. My work ethic also is what brings anyone anywhere. You're not going to just be a great comedian and someone's just going to follow you, and be like, oh, you're coming to Hollywood, come. No, it takes a lot of effort. It's a lot of talented people that never get recognized because they're not out there doing it.
Right. Well, and to that point too, I think like to shout out certain people that are doing it, like Lola.
Yeah, Lola Hernandez, man. Lola Hernandez is one of the first comedians I met out here, and instantly, I have this thing where even like I'm a comedian, but I'm a fan of comedy. Mm-hmm. So there's girls like her, like Savannah Hernandez, both Hernandez girls, awesome. And they're gonna, in my eyes, they're gonna make it to the next level. Yeah. And that's the thing. You can't think of it as like a competition. It isn't. We can all eat.
Right.
There's enough chairs at the table. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Shit, they're still pulling out more. You know what I mean? But they're waiting for somebody who has the work ethic and also the talent. But more importantly, the work ethic. Those girls are awesome, you know? And Lola, we did a show.
And Lola's just being herself. I think that's my favorite part.
But I think you got to be genuine. Sometimes, for the most part, an audience can tell if you're if you're bullshit.
And you can feel the energy.
Yeah, I mean, there's something different when someone's telling us. If someone's captivating, you can't be captive. You can't train to be captivated. I feel like you're either captivating or you're not.
That's true.
You know, it's what is the difference maker between really great actors and people who are just in the background. It's even like when someone talks, there's a specific person where you're like, oh, this person tells a good story.
Mm-hmm. Animated, and you're like hooked.
Exactly. So Lola's really good at that. Lola's gonna me and Lola, we did a show in Prescott. She was my feature, and we did it a week before the election, and it was wild. It was a good show.
Did you get to bring your own beer?
Yeah. You get I actually had 5 friends that came out to see me out there, and they brought like a case of White Claw or something, and all the guys out there were just like shitting on them. But I brought her to New York with me. She was my feature, and I brought her here. I think and people think like, oh, is it because, you know, she's a woman? Cause especially in today's, like, oh, you're doing it because, oh, that's good, you're doing it for women. I'm like, no, she's just talented.
Right.
She just happens to be a woman.
You did Miami too. And
I just got back from Miami, the Miami Improv. Shout out Miami Improv. Yeah, just reposted me. So thank you for that. That was amazing. Because it was the toughest crowd I ever dealt with.
How big? How many people?
Maybe like 150.
And toughest, like how describe?
Like the crowd didn't, like, I would say the first couple of comics bombed.
Okay.
I think realistically, I think the headliner did well, yes. But I think by the time the headliner came on, the audience was exhausted. Mm-hmm. And then it was just me and a gentleman named Cisco Duran. Actually, just put out a special on HBO. So that just came out yesterday on HBO Max. So Cisco Duran. But even then, I listened to both of our sets because we recorded it. The struggle we had with the audience
was real.
It was real, but we didn't stop. Every other comic, when they felt it, they're like, oh, okay. And they felt defeated. You've seen comedians, once they know they're not doing well, they kind of just, because in all reality, most comedians are insecure. Super. It's only with the microphone that we feel like Superman. And then Dave Chappelle has a really cool quote. He says, he goes, on this microphone, I'll chop it up with the best of you. I'll talk, I'll gab, so I can just be chill when I'm off the microphone. He said his mom told him, sometimes you have to pretend to be a lion so you could be the sheep that you really are. And that quote is really dope because most comedians are very awkward. I'm an exception to a rule where I'm like active, I'm talking.
Yeah.
Where most of my comedian
friends,
you're
a good host too.
They don't. This is where they feel safe, and outside of it, we're awkward people. We have like a mental illness, you know. Like I feel like think about it, like because to get on a mic, what is the number one fear people have? Public speaking. Mm-hmm. Number 2, fear of dying. So that's a famous Jerry Seinfeld joke. He says that's why. Isn't it crazy that people rather die than to come up here and say jokes? Well,
and I want to say too, like, it's not easy to get up there. So even when like the comedians, like they're struggling, like just be a little nice because it's hard to be.
I know. I run a weekly open mic and I tell people that all the time. I'm like, they're not feeling it. I'm like, hey, why don't you come up here? I'll pay you next drink. Actually, I'll pay the bill because I know they won't. I had that. I was at a show and I was hosting it, and some Denver Nuggets, like basketball players, were there. And I said, hey, they were like kind of like, oh, I can do that better. I said, oh, you could do it better? And they had bottle service. I said, come up here, 5 minutes. Give me 5 minutes of material. I'll buy your bottle service.
Oh.
And the guy's like, yeah. Nah. And they sat back down. I said, all right, so shut up.
Right.
Show some respect, because it's not easy to come up
I personally love the way you handle rude people in the crowd. I get to see it, and
Gotta
you
do it quick.
yeah. So share what you did in Atlanta.
Yeah, I ended up hosting the show.
Which you
shout
were
out to
in.
Jay Young. Yeah. Ended up hosting. It was great. There was a guy that was just talking in the front, and I just told him, shut the F up, or I'll tell people what you're wearing tonight. And it was obviously, what happens is you could really say that to anyone. They can have like the best clothes, but someone on a microphone tells you that, you're going to second, like, do I look stupid in this? Do I look dumb? You attack their insecurity, which obviously is mean, but you're talking while I'm supposed to be talking.
Right.
And as a comedian, this is how I deal with you. And then yeah, I just shut him up one more time. And it was funny. He really looked at his clothes real fast, and he was just like, what? I said, yeah, you relax.
Right.
And then we went on with the show. But it's what we have to do, man. We're kind of like the lowest form of entertainment. Like, as far as like, because like anyone could like literally just get on stage. Like, we don't sing, right? Like, you can only tell the joke really once. And then, like, you know what I mean? Where a singer can sing the same song over and over again for 30 years.
Right.
So
that's true.
But I love it. I love seeing a group of comedians. That's why, like, it's never about me. It's about everything. Because if this area doesn't blow up and be a central hub for comedy, I feel like I'd fail. Like, everyone was leaving, going to Texas to do comedy because Joe Rogan went there. I love Joe Rogan. But to me, I was like, I took that as an insult. Like, why not Phoenix? Why not Arizona? We're the 5th largest city in the country.
And we're the best.
Why not us, right? And people are getting to know that. So that's why I love seeing a group of comedians just kind of chopping it up, just talking shit to each other, just having a few drinks. That's why I do the open mic, and I call it Industry Night for Comedy, so that people could connect.
You have our back. And it's cool because you represent us when you go home to New York. You know, Miami.
Even in Miami, yeah.
Yeah, and you brought up Jay Young. So Jay Young is an incredible, talented, what do you call it, rapper?
Artist, yeah, he's hip hop. I mean, he does some of the singing and rapping. That is,
His work ethic is just like yours.
He's nonstop. He's nonstop.
And we're bringing him to Arizona soon.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be a big one.
You were gonna shout out George. I interrupted you. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, George. He brought out the McLaren for my drive-in movie theater show. George's been implemental as well. Always a, you know his business's names, but always a very. I feel like everyone in the circle has a really great work ethic. What's funny is that I didn't always have a good work ethic. I was very lazy. For real, just never saw the reason. So never saw the point of certain things. Like, oh, why would I do that? Why would I do this? Always saw the negative in things, but I realize now that without it, you can't ever get the things you want. You got to do the things you hate so you can get the things you want. So I learned that really through you, through George, through the circle, like of being with you guys. I learned that with having these people and also reducing the volume on some people that used to play a large part of my life, it's made the biggest change.
Just protecting your space.
Oh my God. I used to have a hard time saying no to things. Oh, why don't you come here? And I feel entitled. I feel like I would have to go. And I didn't want to go. So now I say no to things that really take a lot of my energy. I'd wake up exhausted listening to maybe my friend's problem that they've had for a year on end because they themselves don't want to help themselves. So you can't help everyone. That's something I learned too.
Yeah, and I think you learn that along the way. I think that's like part of growing up. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
Would you agree? Because, I mean, even me too, like, and even with the podcast, like, I mean, think about it. You know, like you said before, like, there's always some people, you just can't help that. There's going to be people, whether they're quiet about it or not, they don't wish you well, you know? And some people, they wish you to do good, but never better than them. But see, I had to learn to stop caring about that. And I just kind of do what makes me happy. Yeah, because the opposite of love isn't hate, right? It's apathy. You know, when you hate someone, on some level you love them. You're
you're almost giving worship. And that's why I don't, when someone's like, I hate this person, I'm like, why do you think about them so much? You know? So,
or like, you're not over them, trust me.
It should be, yeah, I don't even care. I mean, good or bad, it's all the same to me. You know? That's all it is. That's how I will respond to anyone that's like really hates something. I go, hey man, don't give it so much of your energy.
It's
for
true.
that reason alone.
Yeah.
I say, you know, I can tell you're not over it because you keep telling me how much you're not over it.
Right. Especially with breakups.
Yep.
Well, I mean, even, you know, with the podcast, like I was saying earlier, like I had to really understand that this podcast is an opportunity for me to highlight amazing people, that it's not about me. So then that's what made it easier for me. Because in the beginning, I was struggling, you know, because I'm like, oh, how do I look? Oh, my God. New. Yeah, I gained weight. And now I just don't care because it's not about me. It's about you guys. And being able to share your message so you can help other people too.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, I give that up to you more than anybody. So talk about somebody I feel like doesn't sleep sometimes, you know.
Oh, I
like,
sleep.
I'll get a good night text sometimes real late. And the same morning at 5 a.m., you're like, hey, I'm like up, about to get, you know, a workout in. I'm like, what? But you're high charged. And with you, I think something I've learned is to make the most out of my time. And that's why I've learned the most out of you is to do the most out of my time and to do it with the intent of love. You can't do it without ever thinking you're going to get anything in return. But like I said, having that attitude, that's something I learned from you. I get it back anyways, you know?
Yeah, I mean, like living like we're already on top of the world, right? And the first thing we do when we're up there is like bring other people up with us.
Exactly. The view's way better up here.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't know. You hear me talk about this, like obviously with my mom's passing, that did a lot to me, and like how we're just here so temporarily.
Yeah. I think about that. I mean, I think my mom talks about her mortality a lot over the last 10 years. And something she always tells me is like, obviously they're always going to say, don't cry.
It's weird because I'm already doing that now and I'm 40.
Yeah.
I'm like self-aware.
And which is great because you're aware that we do have a finite amount of time. And what we have left to leave over is the experiences and the feelings we left people, right? So my mom would always be like, hey, you know, just make sure you remember what I'm telling you. Because this is stuff that I couldn't learn elsewhere and that I ended up learning the hard way. You get it, so you're a better parent than me. Your kids will be better parents than you, and so on and so forth. Just don't forget what I'm saying to you.
Yeah. I got to meet your mom.
Yeah.
Justin, how much time do we have?
I was just kind of letting it go because it was just a good podcast.
Okay, cool. Albert's outside, by the way, but I think he left. Can I keep going?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, you know, the podcast has to end at some point, but I can't let you out of this room without touching, I think, something important, which is, you know, your relationship. You've experienced some difficult, like, breakups.
Oh, yeah.
And to now having a beautiful, amazing girlfriend that is dating a person who is in the limelight, pretty much, and dealing with that. So,
I mean, talk about dealing. I laugh when you say, like, bad relationships because I've come to terms with it. Some people can't come to terms with it because they can't fault themselves at all either. I think that's why a lot of my comedy is about relationships, because who hasn't been heartbroken? Who hasn't felt like the world was over and that what they were feeling, nobody else has ever felt? That's how I felt.
all right.
My first relationship in New York I had, we were together for a good amount of years. The girl I had a crush on when I was like 12 years old. Asked her to date me every year. Finally said yes when I was 18. Broke up when I was 23. Made a rash decision and moved to Arizona. For the first year or two, all I did was think about her, talk about her, say everything about her, wrote poetry, wrote songs, listened to them, cried on my way to work, cried on my way to bed. Right? Horrible way. Because you know what? I just didn't talk to anyone about it. Mm-hmm. I didn't have no release really of how to do it. I laugh about it now because obviously you come to terms with it. My next serious relationship here in Arizona was a girl, and never want to talk bad about someone because I think when a lot of things that guys do is just say, yo, she was crazy, right? Which is also not taking any fault of your own. I read this book, I think it's called I Got You by Rob Hill Sr. And he goes, let's say your ex cheated on you. Hey, slept with your brother. Hey, took your money. Hey, did all the bad things. Even at that point, you have to understand that they may have been responsible for 98% of the breakup. Cool. Think about the 2% that was wrong with you.
It's true.
Because a lot of people like to just say it was their fault. And you know what I mean? That's why like when people
You
post.
gotta hold yourself accountable.
Exactly.
too.
That's why when people post memes, they're like, you know, it's not you. Somebody's just going to come around and just figure you out and you'll be okay. And that also is just misleading. Maybe it is you. And guess what? My ex was not really good because of the person she was with right before me. You know, she was the one in love and he was like, eh. So when she saw an opportunity to be in love again, all she was remembering was how it felt before. And it deterred her from being great to me.
Like trauma.
Exactly. And that's all it is. It is trauma. And to work out your trauma is what's best. When I first wanted to do comedy, which was way before I was with her, I said, hey, I want to do comedy. Her friend does comedy. Actually has a very, very, you know, notable even podcast. And, you know, from Arizona. She's like, nah, you're not good at that. Shut me down. This is someone that you love. And what I learned more than anything is sometimes you'll experience someone telling you you can't have something, and it'll be from the person you love. Even people who love you will tell you how much your dream is out of reach. And that's why you can't really believe anyone but yourself, but your gut. And at some point, you got to be real with yourself. Let's say I'm not good at comedy. Let's say I keep going and I never do well. Man, it must be the audience. Keep blaming it for years. At some point, I have to have a conversation with my character and then realize, hey, this isn't for me. So with relationships, and what I always tell people, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt a lot. It's supposed to. It doesn't feel good. But it'll get better. Things always get better as long as you want them to. You keep picking at the scab, it's always going to bleed. But if you don't and you let it heal, it's like it was never there.
And you move on. You clean
Absolutely,
it up. And
you move on. And dating, and it's always been I was dating last year, and I don't like that you're always out networking, and that's what it is, and that's all it is. I'm exhausted sometimes, and that's why I make time for the person I'm with. I know now to dedicate a certain amount of time for that person because I know how my personality is. How would I feel if I was with a comedian and after every show, there's some guy who just wants to hug her, take pictures with her? At some point, I have to build some resiliency and also trust my relationship. Because guess what? Someone who wants to cheat on you is going to do it.
no matter what.
You could put them in a glass case. They're going to figure out a way of getting out and doing it, coming right back in, and you won't even know what hit you. And that's just the way it is. Make sure and even if you do everything right and that person cheats on you, that's a way of knowing that you can leave that scot clear. Me, the one I dealt with in New York, years, right? The one in Arizona took a couple months to deal with. Because what I realized is I did everything I had to.
Your conscience was clean.
I was good. The people who go back and can't get over shit is because they didn't do everything. They kept their walls up. They didn't give it a legitimate shot. And that's why they're not at peace. And that's what happens with a lot of things. Even with I know a comedian, his sibling, is also a good comedian. Doesn't raise him up because he feels that as some type of challenge. Being at peace with competition, your family, your friendships, is just good for really just you. And let them say whatever they want to say. That's on them.
Yeah. Yeah, and shout out Kenzie because I think she has a good understanding of the nature of her job.
And it's hard.
Yeah.
To say that
supporting your dream.
To say that we don't argue about it would be a complete lie. But even if, let's say, that's not lasting, and I always think about that, and she moves on to somebody else, at least she'll know, hey, this is the base that Eric gave me of being treated well. So this is where I'm going to stick to. This is
I like that.
my level. You know, you have to be at peace at things that may end, and let's say it be forever, and that's good too. But it's never easy when you think you have nothing to improve on.
Yeah, and I think that part of living is just, well, I don't know. I kind of think that to love completely, you have to trust, right?
Yeah.
And to be vulnerable.
100%.
Because at the end of the day, you can't control the other person.
100%.
All you can do is love them and love them hard. And if they still step out or do something to you, then it's at that point you can move on knowing you didn't do anything.
In that book, and the reason I read like relationship books was for comedy, was to find relationship stuff to talk about. But I ended up learning a lot. And one of the main things in the book, it says, you know, it's not on you to change anyone. It's on you to love them. And if that love inspires change, then great. That's like, let's say I go out all the time. Let's say I don't do comedy. I just like going out 5 days out of the week. It's just what I like doing with my boys and maybe even with my girl. My girl doesn't like it, but I love her. But she expresses her thing that she just doesn't enjoy it, that I do it so much. And out of love, maybe I cut it down to two times a week, maybe one. Mm-hmm. And when people ask me, hey, why? Because I'd rather be happy at home than happy with y'all. You know, something that just came to me right now about that. I was in Manhattan. I think I was 21 years old. I was in a suit. I was in this rich place. I was like, hey, I have $80. Let me see if I can go get some drinks. Whatever. And I was standing next to a guy. Looked at his watch. Was all decked out. He just looked like a man of wealth. Me and him were trying to talk to the same girl. And then the girl left. And I was like, let me buy you a drink. Drinks were like $22. I was like, oh, shit. All right, let me get one. He's like, okay. And I bought it. And he goes, you're a kid, huh? I was like, yeah, I'm 21. He's like, yeah. Look it. I was like, okay. I was like, hey, man, before I get out of here, give me some advice. That's what I'd always ask since I was a kid. Anyone who's over, hey, can you give me some advice? He goes, yeah. Something I've heard before, but he goes, but I'll tell you, and I'll give you a little bit to go with it. He goes, I'm a single man now. I'm a divorced man. Because the reason I'm single is because I was married to money over my wife.
Wow.
And my kids. Money meant more to me. And I always made the excuse of saying, oh, it's for you guys, for you guys. And he said, something I leave you with is there is no amount of success that can compensate for failure in the home. He goes, what's the point of making millions if my wife doesn't want to stay in the same room as me? What's the point of making all this money if my kids can't even recognize me?
Can't stand you.
They can't stand me. He goes, so no matter how successful you get, Eric, nothing can compensate for failure in the home. And that was like, I had to write that one down. I was like, but now I can, I can spit it at you 100 times. That's the advice I give anyone. Because that can apply in so many ways. Failure in the home in any kind of, if you're a kid, stop being a jerk to your mom because she'll be gone one day. Right. You know, hey, you're an aggressive, abusive husband. Stop. If you're a jealous girlfriend and nags and maybe you get physical and
you're the one doing stuff yourself.
And you're the one, you know what I mean? So nothing can compensate no matter whatever it is that you're doing. You're so cool out there, but inside your man hates you. Right. Your kids hate you. Your girl hates you.
Yeah, you're living for everyone else.
So that was like the big one. If I were to say anything, that's like, I still remember that. That was 13 years
like
ago.
DJ just reposted. I had posted it years ago and then reposted it again. He had posted it and I saw it. And it's true. Some people are so poor, all they have is
money.
Yeah, and it's real. It's true. So when you make it, because you will. Yeah. I guess you'll remember all of those things.
Of course. You got to bring it with you. You don't want to get lost. I think as a comedian, once you start becoming too flashy and stuff like that, you kind of get less funny because you're the voice of the people.
My friend Alexis, the first thing she texted me was how humble you were. And she loved it. She was at the recent comedy show.
Yeah, I reached out to her.
Because you met them, Vanessa, all of them, Crystal, at Dorian, the first show, which, by the way, I have that video. It is so when you make it, I'm holding onto that video for TMZ.
Me speaking on a boombox.
My boombox. Awesome. Did you hear me? I'm going to wait for TMZ to pay me. because
That's
it's your
right.
first one.
That is.
And that was so good, you know?
It was good. I remember I was even nervous for that. But yeah, I mean, being humble, it's so crazy that gets like celebrated, but
it's true.
it's like you have to. You have to be humble or life will humble you.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it'll happen real fast. Somebody will put you in it doesn't even have to be someone. An event can happen to make you realize how human you are.
And I think like that part is so valuable, that point, because life is a cycle, right?
Yeah.
It's like you're up, you're down, and that's why you can't.
The same people you see on the way up, you see them coming on the way down.
Yeah, and that's why you can't.
And they'll remember how you treated them.
They'll be the same people, you know? So I know we have to go soon, but will you tell anyone out that's listening, trying to be a comedian, trying to be a business owner, trying to be, you know, an art, whatever, what advice can you give them?
I feel like I'm a quote machine. But because everything that has been said already, but like in an interview with Pitbull, they asked him the same question. And he goes, there is no magic bullet. Hard work. Work hard. That's it. You know what I mean? It's as simple and as complicated as that is what he says. And he says that people would always tell him, hey, Chico. And I'm like getting it right from his little YouTube. He goes, hey, Chico, what? You're always so lucky. People tell me, oh, you're always so lucky. And he says, you know what's funny? The harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
And that's where, so anyone that's trying to be a comedian, apply yourself. That's it. Maybe you're funny in a different way, because there's some comedic actors that probably could never do stand-up, but they're really funny on film. So there's so many different, maybe you're a good writer. Find it. Maybe you're all the above. But absolutely give it 100% before you're saying this isn't for me. In anything. Relationships, job, you know, your talent.
Yeah.
So that's it.
Even your relationship.
Exactly. You got to apply the same thing. Hard work, work hard.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
So like in New York, when you gave a toast,
Yeah.
just go after your dreams, right?
Let's go after it. What do you have to lose other than the opportunity?
Right. Well, Eric, thank you for being here with your favorite person.
Yes.
At Connect with Christina, a.k.a.
Clout God.
Brand new Benz, never ask her how she get it.